This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Welcome to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. If you're a clinic owner with a big vision for the future, or you're formulating a vision for creating a great place to work, a place that attracts the best quality therapists to come and work with you, that attracts your ideal clients, and you have no problems filling your books, then this episode is for you. I'm in conversation with Meg and Neena from Articulate Design. And we go into depth as to how the space that you create, not just any space, but an intentionally designed clinic space, can help you attract quality team members. It can boost the connection of those team members and facilitate a great culture. It can also help with the care experience that you provide your patients. And we look at how this is actually part of a bigger play in building a purposeful clinic, a clinic that is intentionally designed to attract great people, work with them, and serve them to the best of your ability. This is about bringing your vision to life through the space that you curate and create. Let's join the conversation now with Meg and Neena. So when we first met, there was a part of the conversation that really stuck with me, and it was around how you framed clinic design and commercial or financial results for a clinic and the business in particular. And Meg, I'm really curious to know, what should clinic owners prioritize first to ensure that their investment into a refurbishment or a new clinic translates into tangible business results?
Yeah, great question. I think the best way to open this answer is to say that design historically or even conventionally is really thought of as a frill, like a bonus if there's extra cash in the bank to put some money into it. And that it's really just about the aesthetics and creating a beautiful space. And where we really challenge that narrative is to say that design is in every corner of the business, from really effective and efficient and informed space planning, so that every square foot or square meter of space is utilized to its most effective income generating potential. It's infusing a brand to create a brand experience within a bricks and mortar space that has staying power in the memory of the clinicians and the clients visiting it. It's integrating technology in a way that best serves the demographic visiting the space, and that again kind of makes the flow and function of the clinic work seamlessly. And so to sort of get back to the question, it's that, design is maybe one of the most is like the highest return on investment you can make in your clinic, for that reason of that a clinic that doesn't flow well, that doesn't have a brand presence, that isn't really designed in a way that's really thoughtful is really challenging then to come back from.
Hey, just to interrupt the podcast for one moment. Did you know that one of the common challenges for a growing clinic is the inefficiency from scattered systems? You got duplicates everywhere. No one knows where to find any of the information they need for policies, procedures, or training. And it creates a bottleneck, always coming to you as the owner or leader of a clinic to have to know where everything is and how to do it. Well, that's why we created a tool called Allie. It is your one place, your source of truth for all policies, procedures, training, and performance. It plugs into your patient management system and is the storehouse for all of the important compliance docs that you need to have to run a good business and have your best practices documented, shared with your team, and importantly, acknowledged by your team. Yes, you can even track, have they read it for any auditing or compliance purposes. You can head over to allieclinics.com and you can test it out for an entire month for free. No credit card down. There's like literally no risk. Give it a crack and I'm sure you'll love it. And reach out if you need any help in systemizing your business and streamlining those things so they're no longer scattered. Right, let's head back to the episode now. And then Meg, how do you talk about this with clients who are looking to engage you for design? When they come to you, how do you curate, justify that business case? Do you talk about it and how do you talk about it with them?
Yeah, I think most people coming our way, we're very fortunate that they find us because it's already something that they're very curious to explore and they see the value behind it. But obviously there's a natural tension of we are completely empathetic that every space, every clinic owner has a budget and it's usually a tight one. And how do we make dollars and cents stretch as far as possible? And so we really just try to approach it in that we are here to consult and we are here to use our expertise, both as clinicians and designers, to make sure that you're spending your investment in design in the lane that makes the most sense. And for some, that's going to be a complete redesign of how the space functions to make their business function a lot better. And for others, it's infusing their brand into the space. And others, it's adapting to a changing model of technology and digitization of a clinic space. So it really just depends on the type of clinic and really what their needs are.
So Neena, let's talk about then the design of the space and maybe just practically like floor plans as an example, or using the fully utilizing the square feet that you have available. What are some of the things that you use to optimize the floor plan of a clinic?
I think that is part of why we've found such success in our business with our clients is because we're clinicians. So Meg and I have like a very intimate understanding of a space that feels functional to actually work in and thrive in. So even things as simple as understanding the dimensions of a treatment room and what should those be and how flexible can a space be for a multitude of different kinds of practitioner, depending on just literally the sheer four walls of it. So it can be something as simple as that, and opening someone's mind to the fact that like a more comfortable space or a more flexible space is really great for income generation, because perhaps the type of clinician you're having in your space is going to change, right? So that's one aspect of the floor planning. I think another one is really intimately involved with just the use of technology. So Meg and I are, huge proponents of introducing different types of technologies into spaces. For instance, like a traditional reception area, and we've chatted about this a bit before, but maybe, thinking a little bit more forward in terms of, yes, paperless, but also, there's a lot of amazing software offerings out there so that patients can check in at an iPad instead of like a big kind of cumbersome reception desk with like a fax machine and 3 people sitting there. Maybe it can be something a little bit more intimate, a little bit more interactive, but also it allows for the square footage of the reception space to be something really standout and unique. So in our portfolio in the past, we've created like a mini lending free library in clients' reception, their book enthusiasts. And another one, we created like a full coffee bar kitchenette, where clients could come and sit at the bar while they waited for their appointment and have a coffee. So I think the integration of technology really frees up square footage for more meaningful brand experiences and income generation. So those are 2 examples of how we kind of work with floor plans to really optimize success for our clients.
I'm keen to go into that flexibility comment that you made around like giving yourself optionality over different practitioner types or different services, and practically maybe some examples of how you've done that. But just to share with you, one of the inspirations for Clinic Mastery when we first started was a dentist by the name of Paddy Lund. And Paddy had this, I think he's got a book out there, but one of the elements to his story was that he took either an axe or a chainsaw to the front desk, the admin desk, and like got rid of it. And it's this kind of theatrical moment, but they created essentially a small cafe as their welcome center. And they even changed the name there, I think, from waiting room to a welcome center. And it was this idea that waiting rooms are just so drab and a terribly boring, sterile experience. And they're somewhat of a necessary evil or an afterthought for a clinic. There's not a lot of like purposeful design put into this part of the space overall. But I really liked hearing those examples of how you do it. I know a couple of like pediatric clinics that have play spaces, almost like a mini creche type of space for the kids as they wait. I got 4 kids and I know what it's like. They're crawling up the walls waiting to go into the dentist or, the OT or speech pathologist. So keeping them engaged while they wait is super important. But to that flexibility point, Meg, what are some of the things that you've done that you've seen in clinics that gives you that optionality over the space? You know, if you all of a sudden add a whole bunch of practitioners, or you get practitioners from a different discipline and they do need different makeups of the room, what have you practically seen done to give that optionality in a space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with our process and the way in which we intake our clients. So being physiotherapists by training, we take our design intake form very similar to how you would do it with a patient, right? So it's detailed, it's really asking the right questions so that the answer is given to us, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And I think any practicing clinician will understand that.
Can you,
so,
just to interrupt, Meg, can you talk us through just some of the core elements? Because I imagine someone listening in or watching in is maybe thinking through, well, what do I need to know if I was to get help in my space? What could I be thinking about ahead of time? So what are some of those things you want people to tell you when they come to you?
Well, I think the way in which we've approached it is a little unorthodox in that most think the form is going to be strictly about their aesthetic leanings, how they like a space to look and feel. And we dive way deeper than that. And so to get back to your original question, we're asking what's your 1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan for your business. We're asking what you want your brand experience to be. We're asking for places that you like to visit across all industries that really evoke a feeling of like what you want to bring into your clinical space. We ask questions about the type of music that you like to play. It really spans the whole 360 of how then we approach the design, so that we're looking not only, the aesthetic part is honestly a very, very small part of our intake. And the secret is that the aesthetics are actually the easiest part of what we do. The hard part is really taking all these factors of, okay, what's your business plan? How do you see your business growing? What's the demographic that is sort of your avatar person that you want to be treating? What types of practitioners are you looking to bring into the space? What's the vibe? What's the look? What's the feel? So that when we then design the space, we're keeping all of those things in mind. So to pull that back to the original question of the flexibility within a space, we're trying to get clinicians to look outside of the next 6 months, which is what most people are doing when they open a space. It's like, I just need to get the doors open. I just need to be practicing, like, let's just bang up some walls and then I'll deal with it later. And so we're doing a pushback to say, well, wait a minute. You're telling us that in 5 years, you hope to have this multidisciplinary team. And we're telling you what you think is going to take 5 years is probably going to take you a year and a half. So let us help you design for what is to come based on what you have told us through this intake process. And so let's make sure these rooms, you could have a chiropractor in there from 7 a.m. till noon, and then you may have a massage therapist use it for the second part of the day, and then you may have a naturopathic doctor in the evening. And that the way in which we've laid it out, the size, the amenities within it are going to suit those practitioners to the best of the ability that we can do.
Hey, just interrupt the podcast for one moment. Did you know that beyond this podcast, we have a consulting service where we work directly with you as a clinic owner to help grow your clinic? Now, if you're wondering how does it work and are these the right people for me, you can send an email to hello@clinicmastery.com. That's hello@clinicmastery.com, and we'll arrange a time to have a conversation. Now, on average, people have 3 conversations with us spaced over a couple of days or a couple of weeks to figure out whether we're the right folks to help you in your next stage of business. There's no pressure whatsoever. We want you to feel fully committed to either working with us or not at all. That's totally cool. But that is our specialty that we've built our brand on over a decade now. You can read our reviews, testimonials, and case studies. We've done a ripping job at helping heaps of people from a variety of backgrounds grow their clinic sustainably. But probably you want to know whether we're the right sort of fit, a values alignment for you. Best way to do that is to have a phone call with us, a Zoom call, and see whether we can help you out. Send us an email, hello@clinicmastery.com. Let's arrange a time, see whether we can launch you into the next stage of your growth. All right, back to the episode. I love that optionality. And you bring up a good point here. And a trend that I'm noticing a lot in clinics is that they've got a space they're paying rent for, and they've got the option to use that as many hours of the day and as many days of the week as they possibly can, but maybe to standardize it, they use it between 9 a.m., 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. And you get some clinics that go, okay, we'll add a Saturday, or we'll actually open a little bit earlier, close a little bit later. And they start to actually open up the utilization of the physical space a bit more, which plays into the commercial results of the business. But going even a little bit further, I've noticed a number of clinics doing like a shift model where, they might have a group of their team start 7 a.m. in the morning. They'll go through till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you kind of have the next shift of people come on from about 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. And they're sort of maximizing the utilization of their space as best as they possibly can. And then again, they could open up on a Saturday. Some open on a Sunday, but not so much. And then what happens is perhaps there's this trade-off in the middle of the day where their teams can be a little bit ships in the night. They sort of cross and overlap, and maybe there's a concern, or they've actually experienced, hey, this isn't particularly good for the culture of the team. Sort of they're clocking on, clocking off, and they kind of miss one another. There's not a lot of connectivity. And perhaps with the intention to maximize the physical space that I have, maybe I got rid of the tea room or the team room, right? I made it into a treatment space or a gym or something like that. And now it's very small or pokey or non-existent at all. I'm interested in that sort of intention or focus of a clinic owner who's trying to maximize the space for billable activities, billable services, and also trying to create a space for their team members to connect and work, or possibly even do billable services that are like writing assessments or reports where they don't need to see a patient. They don't need the big space of a room, but they need a space to do that type of work. So it's this balancing act that I'm seeing across a number of different clinics of trying to optimize the space for face-to-face services and also still have a space for their team. Can you just talk us through some of the creative things that you've done or that you've seen in being able to reconcile both of these objectives?
Yeah, I think as you said, it's absolutely a balancing act. So when if you have a very small space, then it gets harder to designate a space that is just exclusively for staff. And then if you have a really large space and you don't have something like that, then you're kind of having nowhere for people to eat and do all these kind of like things that you want to kind of keep behind closed doors. So it is a balancing act. I think number one, what we try to do is in those smaller spaces, have generous treatment rooms where there's storage. People maybe can chart, they could potentially eat their lunch and store everything behind, in a cabinet or something like that, and feel very comfortable in that therapy space to use it in all the ways that they need to during a shift. I think the other thing that we do is in a recent project, we've created little like nooks down a big expansive hallway. And that allows clinicians to not only have a place to acquire things that are maybe shared among practitioners between rooms, but it's like this really nice little place for people to like meet for 5 minutes and say, oh, okay, this is what I'm dealing with this right now. Do you have an idea for this? Or they can have their tablet out and do a little bit of charting while standing. So we create moments like that within spaces that are not necessarily designated staff areas. I think the other thing that we really, really value is just communicating like the brand experience, the culture that our clients are trying to create in order to attract the right vibe of clinicians coming into the space, and then creating a physical experience of that brand, right? And that's really creating a really nice culture so that if people are starting, at a pretty modular space in the gym, they still feel really connected. They don't feel like, oh, like I don't have my own space to go sit down and decompress. We try to create spaces that really honor the culture that our clients are trying to create for their clinicians. So I think that that's kind of underlying everything.
Yes.
And then how people are spending their, time doing like the non-direct clinical skills is actually quite variable.
And Neena,
I'll just like jump in. Sorry, one thing to add to that I agree with everything Neena said. And also it's knowing the market that you're in. So people who are in a downtown urban center where, the cost to lease a space is incredibly expensive, it likely makes more sense to maximize income generating spaces or treatment rooms or spaces. And there's also likely a plethora of things in the area, coffee shops and places to have lunch, that shifts the scales a bit. Then you look at the opposite of the spectrum, and we did a place in rural Canada where acquiring staff is so challenging that their staff room was the number one priority of their clinic space. It's a massive chunk of the real estate because the real estate is much cheaper, but they wanted to outfit it to the nines because their main priority was acquiring or getting people to come to this area to work. And so they had a ping pong table, they had a Peloton bike, they had a whole lounge area, they were bringing lunches in each day because for them, that was the priority. So I think it's just important to understand your market, understand the geography of where you are, and really what is most important.
Have you used any of those quiet booths? You can kind of get those pods. Have you seen those pods before? Like, is that something that you've ever used, like where maybe space is an issue or, the noise is an issue? Do you ever find you've used those or seen them used effectively?
We have used them actually. We had the privilege of designing a really interesting space where it was a co-working space for parents. So it was like just a really wellness minded. So there was a yoga studio where people could come and do yoga classes, but it had a full daycare so they could have their kids cared for. And then it had a co-working space. So within the co-working space room, we had 2 modular pods built, and they were soundproofed, and they allowed for that like little privacy moment and a little bit more quiet for our clients. So we have used those in the past. It's just kind of knowing the right time and place to use some of these really cool products out there.
Yeah. Neena, on that point around the culture that a clinic owner wants to create, can you give us an insight into some of the examples you get come through those forms or those conversations? How do people describe it in a way that is then useful for you creating a design that would fulfill or meet that need?
Well, I think it goes back to the questionnaire, the intake questionnaire that we create, and it really helps us build a picture of our clients and what success in their physical space looks like to them. So, understanding what their 5 and 10-year plan is, understanding their ideal avatar, like who is their ideal client coming in through the doors? What kind of work does that person do? What age group are they in? Understanding the kind of music our clinicians want to listen to in the space, right? All of those things, and looking at their physical, like their actual brand packaging or their branding assets. All of that together is what really helps us develop a plan for creating a physical experience and expressing that culture. That's why too, if you ever look at our portfolio, like none of our projects look the same, because we're never trying to instill our own aesthetic into these spaces. Really, our job is just communicating that culture and that brand experience that our clients have created, because that's ultimately what's going to bring their ideal clients and patients through the door.
And Meg, with this, what sort of advice would you give clinic owners who have maybe a tighter budget? They don't have a lot of money. Maybe they're a startup, or maybe they're just at a point in business where they get it. They understand they need to do this, but I don't have a lot of funds, perhaps. What are some creative and cost-effective ways in the design and setup of a clinic that can add real value to clients and team members?
Yeah, I mean, there's very kind of practical advice, like paint goes a long way, and there's some like very kind of tangible things people can do that are more DIY and lower budget. But ultimately, I'd almost pose it more to say, if it's an existing space and these questions are swirling in your head around the design and experience, if you step outside, because it's hard when we're all in a space and we work in a space and we live and breathe our business to sometimes see it for what it is. But if you step outside for a second, literally step outside and look inwards, does the space you're looking at feel like it represents your brand? That if someone walked in and there's no one there to greet them, and they haven't read a website, and they just walk in the physical space, does it send the message that you want your brand to translate? And that comes down to the lighting. Is it super bright and stimulating, and you're in a space that you're trying to neuroregulate and bring people down, or vice versa? Are the colors in line with how you want people to feel, or do they evoke the feeling that you're looking to translate? Does the seating fit, again, the messaging that you want? Like all those little elements, if you just take a step back, it will start to become clear where the gaps are, to say, okay, this lighting needs to go, or this bright red feature wall I painted behind my front desk when I first opened is no longer serving me. That's not the vibe I want to, put out there. And so you're really just trying to do that exercise of your own little audit of, is this cohesive? Is this the message I want to put across? And really that's the sign of success for us when we finish a project, of if nobody is in this space, could either someone who's applying for a job there or someone who wants to come as a consumer understand the brief, understand the brand, and hopefully that's what comes across.
Yeah, I totally agree with Meg. I think it's like taking the time to do the audit and really reflect on your practice, however small it is, or however, meager your budget may feel to you. And then I think it's sweat equity. It's like, once you realize those gaps, it's like, be sleuthy, like figure out a way to fill those gaps. We had someone who was part of a scholarship collaborative that we had, where they won a free consultation from us. But really, that practitioner, she thought about her solo practice like so thoroughly. She had big aspirations, and then she didn't have a big budget to execute our design, and she did all of it herself. And she painted that logo and she figured it out, and it looks like $1 million, right? So I think like the investment needs to be like your self-reflection and your energy in finding the gaps and executing in whichever way you can. When a place is intentionally designed, it's very obvious, no matter what the budget is. The intent behind that is always physically palpable to someone who walks into a space.
It's almost as if you're doing like a brand strategy before getting into designing the space. I know a number of clinics who have maybe engaged a brand strategist more on, how does their logo look and feel, and their tone of voice, and their positioning in the market, and their website, and some of those digital assets. But perhaps, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're doing essentially the same process, but applying that a lot in the physical space, so that it resonates with team and clients. I'm interested in the recruitment one, to go back to that one, Meg, because in Australia in particular, we hear from a lot of clinic owners how competitive the recruitment market is. And there are a number of elements that go into attracting the right talent, but perhaps broadly, it's that someone would see the type of clinic you have and go, gee, I want to work there. That looks like a great place to work for a number of different reasons. Talk us through maybe some of the clients you mentioned there in a rural destination, which is even harder to recruit than maybe a CBD location. Talk us through some of the elements in thinking through how this space helps in recruiting your ideal team member. The first part you mentioned was like, who is your ideal team member? Age profile, what are they interested in? But take us a little bit further down how I might think about the space, the clinic, and it helping me attract quality team members.
Yeah, great question. We love this question because secretly we design for the clinicians and the clients follow. We're not trying to design a space to bring people in. We know the value of clinicians, and the people will flow in. So we always design first for the clinician, because they're the ones spending the time in the space, the 8-hour, 10-hour days. We understand and empathize so deeply with what it means to be a healthcare provider and the challenges that come with that. And so the space, especially in this industry, is so important for those reasons, in that, we're really trying to lessen the load of what is a very taxing job. And, I think it's important that clinic owners, I think there's a lot of emphasis on, well, what am I paying people? And if I just pay them more, they will come. And there's a lot of both anecdotal and well-researched evidence, and especially in a younger generation, or at least younger than Neena and I, your new grads, your Gen Zs. Is it Gen Z? Yeah. See, it's how old I am. I can't even figure out the generations. That they will take less pay to be in an environment that is inspiring. And that is a real pop out because, you know, it speaks to how important the experience is, and that simply the market is just driving that no longer can you have, you know, a clinic in a dodgy basement with, you know, 30-year-old carpet and old machines and tables that are, you know, as older than the practitioners working on them. It won't matter what splits or pay or incentives or continuing education you're going to provide. You know, people want to feel taken care of. They want to feel seen. They want to take pictures and put it on their Instagram of the place they work and feel that pride in the space they work in and the work that they're doing. And from that, it's all a downhill cascade. You attract great clinicians, they attract great clients who tell more clients, who then allow you to hire more clinicians. It really just kind of speaks for itself at that point.
Neena, building on that, yeah,
I do have something to build on that too. Yeah. I completely agree with Meg. I think a practical example of that would be like, if our philosophy, if my business's philosophy is really focused around like movement-based rehab, well, then Meg and I are realizing that through all of our intake and our, you know, really comprehensive understanding of the business. And then we're designing a wicked gym, right? So it's also like understanding like where the investment should be depending on the types of practitioners you want to bring in, right? If you're having like a lot of Pilates-based therapists, then of course, like you need a nice place for them to work. There shouldn't be like, well, your stuff is around the corner, you know, in a nook. Like, no, we've created this really great storage system that's really practical for you to then feel really successful in your practice. So I think that's also part of it, is like there is a practicality to where we focus some of our design elements, depending on the types of practitioners or the practice philosophy that these clinics may have.
As part of understanding the practitioners, do you encourage the clinic owners to do some version of research or surveying their current team or the market to the degree that they can? Because it sounds like you were trying to really get in the minds and desires of the people that work with us. How do you figure that out? I'm sure lots of clinic owners have their own experience and they can share different things. I do hear that kind of skeptical, beaten down clinic owner that says the younger generation of today, you know, they don't do this, they're entitled with that. And, they probably don't want to empathize with them and get into their shoes. But how do you go about getting into the shoes of the practitioner, Meg? What do you encourage that clinic owner to really do so that they can unpack this philosophy, this culture, this, great place to work from the lens of the practitioner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a, like you can't beat them, join them sort of mentality. Like ultimately, this is the success of your business hinges on the people that you hire. And if this is what the feedback is, then, it's silly to sort of resist that. I'll give you a more negative example. Is we had someone approach us as a client, as a potential client. We always do a discovery call to see if we're a great fit. And she goes, I hate design. I don't care about design, but I have people quitting every 3 months. And apparently it's because my clinics look terrible. So like, I guess I need design help, but like, I'm not spending any more than I have to. And we were like, this is somebody who's just not going to ever get it. Like, it's sort of, I don't know if it's a phrase in Australia, but like lipstick on a pig of like, what's the least I can do to dress this thing up? And you're really not getting to the heart of like what the actual issue is. It's that your staff do not feel heard. They don't feel taken care of. They feel uninspired, and it's their market. They can go anywhere. Like, we have a shortage of practitioners. So if you want the best and the brightest and the ones that are going to stick around, it's no longer a nice to have, it's a need to have. And that doesn't need to come at a massive budget. It's just, to Neena's point, that you've put thought and effort and intention into the function, flow, and design of your space.
I love that point about it. It is their market to pick and choose. And there are certain things that we have to do to be able to attract that, to be deserving of attracting that quality talent to the team. I think, if I'm a clinic owner sort of listening in, and through a lot of conversations I've had with clinic owners over time, there's maybe this like default thinking that, well, going down this road is going to cost me a lot of money and a lot of time. And so, well, I'm not going to think about it because I don't have either of those right now. But what I'm really loving from this conversation is you're actually not even starting there. You're actually saying, what is our philosophy? What is our culture? What do we want our clinic to represent? What are the messages, the feeling we want people to have, whether they're team members or clients, when they come to this space? And then maybe from there, we can get to the logistics of, are there, creative, cost-effective ways, at least to improve what you've got without doing the tacky version, as you said, Meg, the lipstick on a pig type thing. But maybe with the intention of, okay, well, I've signed, a lease and I'm in this space for the next 2-3 years. I can't get out of that for whatever reason. So maybe it's 3 to 5, as you said, Neena, years down the track of, I actually have a much clearer idea of what the future clinic could look like, and it might be at a different location. But for now, there are things that perhaps I could do and be really intentional about that. I love that distinction of intentional design. Are there any resources, books, podcasts, talks that you would encourage people start to listen to? Because they kind of go through their learning journey of, all right, this is on my radar. No doubt having a conversation with either of you about this would be a tremendous activity for someone to do. But is there anything else that you encourage people if they want to kind of go deeper on designing intentional spaces for team and clients?
I think there's a couple of different resources. In Canada, there's some really amazing coaches, clinician turned coaches out there, and who have similar missions to yourself, right? There's some really amazing groups out there that, our peers who we want our peers to succeed. So I think just talking, networking with some of these people, engaging in some of their retreats or conferences, I think those are amazing investments to make. I also think that like a business, big or small, should always undergo some sort of like branding exploration. And I think there's some amazing, talented professionals out there who can help with that. I think like when Meg and I take on clients, either we're always saying right from the start, you need to understand what your brand is. And so, it's nice when people have already done that and they have a really solid sense of the brand, and like hopefully it jives with what we're thinking for the physical space. But otherwise, we're collaborating with people's branding specialists so that we can create that seamless experience. But I think, engaging in some of these other experts out there who are peers, so branding and coaches, I think that those are really amazing resources to just get a better understanding of the brand and the experience and the philosophy as an owner, that you're trying to create.
Yeah, I'll jump in because I know you know this well, but we've really like kind of followed in close line with the Experience Economy by Joseph Pine. You had him on the podcast, I believe.
Yes.
Again, I think it circles back and I like to create a healthy amount of tension with the people we work with, or the people who are curious to work with us, to say, we get it. We understand that there's a million different ways to invest your money in your business, and everyone's pulling at those. So I don't want to be tone deaf to that. but I do want people to be open-minded to all the ways in which really being thoughtful, to Neena's point about a true brand articulation. And that's not just like making a logo and picking your colors. That's understanding your values, your mission, your plan, and then taking that and infusing it into your space. And it doesn't mean you need to work with us or even a professional designer, but putting that intention into the design and looking at it the same way you would invest in your EMR or your practice management or your coach or your accountant or any of the vital pieces of the business people don't seem to question investing their money in. We just like to raise a flag for design and say it's as important, and we think the return speaks for itself when people do go through that exercise. We just need to get better at collecting that data, but we see it and we see the success that's just exponential in places that just take the time and not rush it and do it well. And you know what? Our favorite clients are often those that they started out of necessity of like, I made a logo myself, I picked my brand colors, I painted the walls, I set up a place, and I'm 5 years in, and now I really know myself, I know my practice, let's go to town. And that's just how it is for a lot of people, and we love that. And then they're ready to evolve and go to the next phase, and we're here for it. So
I agree. I'd be very interested in that data as well, the evidence to reinforce, but anecdotally, I'm with you. I see in our community, the clinics that have a premium, and I'll say premium in the sense, actually intentional is a better word, as you said, Neena, a really intentional design to their clinic, their experience, their brand. They're the ones that have no trouble recruiting. They're the ones that often have really full books. So anecdotally, I agree with you. I think those folks that do it, they see the results absolutely, and it's not overnight. And to your point, maybe there's that oh, is it going to work if I put all this time and money in? But absolutely. I think we've probably all collectively got a number of clinics we could easily rattle off that said they've done this, and you can see the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, we're often acting like the mom, to be clear, of our clients to say, don't spend money on this. It's not this I think people think of designers like everything's expensive. We're often saying okay, let's rein this in. You're just starting, and people are ready to go. So again, to really hammer that point of design doesn't need to be expensive. It needs to be intentional. And
it's a great point. And even to that point, I know people listening hopefully haven't reduced it to have a great looking space and you'll attract clients and team members. I think the intentional design is even in creating a great place to work. It's like you said, do you have clear values, and are you practicing those values? Do you have pathways for your team to grow with you? It's being intentional about how you actually create a business. So I really love that. That resonates a lot. We talk about the ASAP principle, which is as sustainable as possible. Everyone's trying to do things really quick and find this hack and do this, thing that gets immediate results. Sure, there are those things that you can do, but it's about playing a sustainable game, we believe at least. And to do that comes with great intention. I'm cautious to ask this question because it's so tailored, but I do want to know, what are some trends you're seeing in clinic design at the moment? There's no doubt some timeless things that always play out. Some of those you've spoken to here about the intentional design, thinking about your practitioners and your clients and going deep on that and making it unique to that clinic. But what are some key trends in what you're seeing in design? You spoke to the future of where things are going in healthcare. So just sort of cap it off. What are some key trends in clinic design that are bringing the future to life?
I think one is technology. So having a more seamless journey from booking at home to checking in and receiving exercises and paying and your journey through a physical space. I think that's a huge one. I think also in our design, private clinics seem to be trending away from like communal open treatment spaces, unless they're attached to a gym and they're doing some fascial stretch and then kind of getting back into it. But I think there is definitely a desire for more private rooms. I think those are two trends that I have noticed. Everybody is saying to us that they want multiple Instagrammable spaces in their clinics. That is also like a very almost ubiquitous request, is Instagrammable areas.
Yeah. I'd say bringing the outdoors in is a big one, like a biophilic design. So plants, wood, stone, textures you'd find in nature. And there is actually a lot of great evidence to support that and how it really impacts health outcomes. So that's something we really try to incorporate and push for. Lighting. Lighting's not really a trend. It's more of a soapbox we hop on, but I do think people are starting to also understand, again, from, good quality research coming out about the lighting, how it affects people, how it affects our nervous system. And again, in a healthcare setting, this is just paramount, so important. So those are things that we really try to focus on within spaces. And then I guess there's the things we try to not focus on or pull people away from. And that is, so many clinics are just carbon copies or kind of repeating the status quo. And I think we really try to push people, whether it's clients we're working with or what we put out into the universe for all clinicians, to say, like, really challenge that narrative of like walking in and the feature wall with your logo and the big reception desk and the like 5, kind of plastic or vinyl chairs and the treatment rooms, like really like let go of all of what you've seen and just spitball and be super creative. And then you can rein it in, but really challenge just doing what has been done because it's been done before.
I love that question.
Yeah, those are the trends we want to die.
Yeah.
The interesting part about the Instagrammable, I take that as, more marketable spaces. Like if you saw this, you'd be like, I want to work there. That looks like a really cool place to be part of. I would say similar. We see a lot of that. And I've seen a number of clinics do it really quite well, and connect, social walls with their brand and people posting. So yeah, there's some really neat ways to go about it. I found Pinterest as a really great, place and space to find some inspiration. But I like that question that you mentioned at the top of this conversation around, what are some spaces that you really enjoy going to and how do they make you feel? For me, like, I love cafes. Like when you go to a really cool cafe, like that's kind of my space. So I would definitely be going down that line of thinking and discussion. But even starting at that point, I think such a practical thing for people listening or watching in is to explore some of these questions themselves. And then, of course, to have a conversation with you. What does that look like? Talk us through if someone's like, yes, I just need someone to really help me out with this. You are the experts here. What do I do from here?
People can get in touch with us they can go to our website, or they can message us on Instagram. I don't know if you want me to share that here and now, but so our website's articulateDesignCo.com, and there's a contact form there where you can give us a little bit of information or context. And we always set up a 20-minute discovery call. I will say that 80% probably of our projects are completely virtual. So we work all over the world. We're currently based in Canada, but that hasn't sort of stopped us from doing projects everywhere. And really, we just try to tease out if we're a good fit, if what you're looking for resonates with our values, right? If truly your intentions of what you want to create resonate with us as a company. And then we kind of take it from there. You can also follow us on Instagram. Articulate Design Co. is our handle. And we're not great at it, but we try to stay on top of it and at least hopefully post some things that will have you questioning or auditing where you're at in your journey. And, we post a lot of the projects that we do as we do them. And a lot of people kind of sit in the weeds there for a while. And we actually quite like that because you get to learn a lot about how we work and what we do and the places that we serve. So those are two really great options for anyone.
Fantastic. That's really good. I have been following along, and it's always good to see what you're working on. Many moons ago, when the experience economy book came out from Joseph Pine, we've had Joseph on now twice on the podcast. We kept getting asked about, clinic designs. Is there any inspiration? So we created a very limited Pinterest board and would send people there and say, go down the rabbit hole on, related designs. But it's really cool to be able to connect in with what you do and see what you're doing, some examples of how people are creating intentional spaces. I just love that. That's really cool. Well, Meg, Neena, thank you so much for sharing. I just love being able to cover how this is more than just a pretty space. It is about creating a great place to work and to heal or for wellness of patients as well, and being intentional the whole way through. Certainly resonates with the Clinic Mastery values of being very purpose-driven about building a sustainable clinic. Well, we will wrap the show. All the show notes will be over at clinicmastery.com. We'll put all of those handles and links to the company and the Instagram profile in the show notes here. So people, hopefully you get lots of people reach out to you and have a call and see whether they can turn their space into something really that fits their brand and their values. But thank you for sharing so openly.
Thanks so much for having us.
You're welcome.
It was a great time. Thanks.
All right. We'll wrap there and see you on another episode very soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast. And please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.